We do a lot of feedback to students, which sort of evidences progress and also hints them towards their next steps. And we do that through using highlighter pens and yellow boxes, so the students would see those in their book and know that they need to take an action based on a piece of assessed work that they've already done. So they would dip into that, and it might be redoing a section, it might be some extension work, it might be completing a couple of extra examples, something along those lines. We can easily track their progress, so those little elements that they've done each time should change. If they're always the same thing that they're working on, then there's an issue. With the work on Google Classroom and Google Apps, we still mirror the yellow boxes, so a member of staff will be drawing yellow rectangles over pieces of work for students to fill in and popping in text boxes with a yellow border, so the students get familiar with that and add to those things.
We give them what we call DIRT time, directed improvement and reflection time, so we're actually giving the students time in lessons to improve their work, because for us, in terms of making progress, it's not what the teacher does, it's what the student does. And of course the teacher can spend hours marking and assessing work, but ultimately if the student doesn't act on that marking, that advice, there's no point in doing it. So as a school, we've adopted the policy of trying to make assessment visible, but then giving the students time to actually act upon that assessment and feedback so that they can improve the work. And as I say, it's whole school. It's something that we would go in, and as part of our lesson observations, our appraisal, we would be expecting to see that on a daily basis. It's about typicality, and that's what we'd hope.
They're certainly looking more carefully at the feedback and the quality of the feedback that they get from staff, whereas previously it was look at their piece of work and it was 10 out of 18 and oh yeah, I've got 10 out of 18, or it was a grade B piece of work, great, it's a grade B. And it's taken away that phrase that they always used to come back with was, you know, is that good? Was the phrase you give them a piece of work and you said, brilliant, that's 17 out of 18, and they go, is that good? And, oh yes, of course it is, or you know, and it's 12 out of 18, and is that good? Well, actually, you know, it is good, you know, from where you've started and where you've got to, that is good. So they were always asking that sort of question, and what this does is sort of take that and establish a sort of expectation of what we want from them. And then gives them that time to reflect on the piece of work rather than look at the mark and then discard it almost. It becomes a sort of essential tool in sort of moving forward onto the next piece of work, and they'll have some targets on, some things to focus on from there, though we expect them not to make the same mistakes the second time.
We think it's important that the students know the expectations and they're clear, but also we use the students across the school to set those expectations. So we talk about student voice, we use student voice. So at the moment we've just done the Rate My Learning survey, and we're following up information that the students pulled out in terms of rating their learning. So for example, I'm sure I'm all right to say this at this moment in time. This morning, as part of my role, I've been going around looking at various classrooms, various lessons, where students have said that perhaps their learning may be impeded by, should we say, the concentration or the behaviour of the students. So we're going around and we're looking at whether that is the case and what we can do to support the children in that classroom and the teachers. So we use Moodle as a VLE, and we've got exemplar work on their folders. We have projects, photos of student projects and things that they can access and look at and all that. We use Twitter as a vehicle as well for communicating information.
For some schools where, you know, the whole school format doesn't necessarily fit, and you've got to find alternatives for that where they can demonstrate progress, and ultimately our job is getting them ready for their next step. And so for the majority of students, that's a collection of certificates that prove, you know, an attainment level that means that gains them entry into their next step, whether that be college or apprenticeships or universities or whatever. For other students, we almost give them the thing that's holding them back. It might be a self-confidence issue, it might be a self-esteem issue, it might be a lack of certain skills, social skills or something like that. And so by working on that, that will allow them to access their next stage, whether that's employment or apprenticeships, college, university or whatever. Because what they can see is we celebrate the things they've done well, but every child will have something to build on, whether that's consolidation of existing learning or something like that. And those are the sorts of things, and they realise then that if they focus on those little things, they don't make that same mistake or that error or whatever happened. And that's where they will gain their confidence. So if a student is set a piece of work that is worth 24 marks, and it might be a timed assessment, and they don't manage to complete all of the sections of whatever in the sort of time given, then they'll work on their time management, and then they'll gain sort of confidence next time they try that they manage their time better in a timed assessment, in which case they'll get a larger proportion of the marks. So that would be a confidence boost, I think, for that. You know, the attitude to learning link to progress, as opposed to, say, prior attainment, would be the case. And we notice it as a pattern. We set very, very aspirational targets for our students, so aspirational that typically 30 or 40% would achieve that target. So the majority would not actually make it. They're that aspirational. But we will always have a few students that go beyond that aspirational target. And they're based on prior attainment, and that is those students that arrive here, and perhaps not having settled into primary school, had a difficult time, come here, in my mind, met with fantastic teaching, inspiring teaching, and suddenly they found their place, and they can move on, and they will exceed those targets. And we do have children making equivalent of 5 and 6 levels of progress. And those tend to be the one where we've reignited their attitude towards learning, and their artificially low prior attainment that they've brought with them ceases to become a bit of an issue, and we can sort of push those children on, and push them on and on and on, and that attitude to learning is the thing that they will carry on doing, and they'll work in their own time, feeling inspired and pushing themselves almost to do that.